Welcome back to episode 9. Guess what? More fiberglassing. You can probably guess that anyways. Behind me you can see I have it on the sides. It's all fitted. I have the tape holding it down so it doesn't slide off onto the floor. I've had that happen before. It's not fun because this glass, it'll pick up any uh, dust or sawdust that you have on the floor. That's why before I actually laid this out. I swept the floor up as best I could, so in case it fell off, but it didn't. Um, you live and learn. So it's on there. It's all roughly cut down to size at the bottom here along the shear line. It's overlapping a little bit, and this is overlapping the chine. This is actually down, cut to size, so that'll be all set there. So all I have to do is apply the resin. So I got the chip brushes are all laid out here. I got a new spreader all laid out. This little stick I'll be using as I'm going along and wetting this out. I'll go around the tape here for a little while. Maybe I'll come down to here and then I'll go back and I'll just lift this tape. But I made a tongue depressor with a little point on it so I could lift the tape up without pulling on the fibers. I'll do that because when you start to wet this out, it might get a little bit slippery at first and tend to want to slide down the hull, especially when you have the glass on the side. I mean, the resin on the side here. I have my mixing cups. I used 11 of them, fiberglass in the bottom. 11 cups. I was doing 24 ounces each. The math comes out to slightly over 2 gallons of epoxy resin to wet out what I figured is about 10 to 11 yards of 12-ounce biax. So somebody can check my math if you want. That's roughly, I think, about 28 ounces per square yard on the 12-ounce biaxial cloth. So I went a little further, and I know I have 75 pounds of fiberglass that I ordered. That, along with the resin, I think I calculated once I have 2 layers on the bottom, 2 on the side, the transom in the bow section done with resin and fiberglass. I'll probably add about 115 pounds to the boat, but it's going to be solid, especially if I do 2 on the side here. And the way I'm doing it, where it overlaps the chine here and the keel and in any corners, essentially there'll be 4 layers. We'll say on just the chine here and any other corners, and it's going to be one strong boat. And I'm doing that because it's a flat bottom, so if it gets a little rough, it won't be slicing through the waves. It'll be kind of pounding through the waves. I don't go for the pounding any more than anyone else. It's just something you gotta just learn to slow it down, and you'll be able to deal with it. Um, who's in a hurry, anyways? I go out in the boat to have fun. I'm in a hurry to get nowhere. So I'm gonna shut the camera off for a few minutes to get it set up. I'll try to position it as best I can so that you can get right up and close in with me, and I'll have to get all my gloves and stuff on and just make sure I have everything ready, and I'll start the camera rolling again once I have all the epoxy mixed. So I'll see you in another minute. Okay, I'm ready to go. I got my epoxy mixed up, got my gloves on, I got my homemade sweatbands on again that I make. I cut the toes off my socks, put a thumb hole in it, put my hand through it, and it works great for me for catching sweat as it's trying to come out of the gloves. And probably looking at them, they're probably better than the socks I'm wearing now. But I got 24 ounces mixed. It's a little different than doing the bottom because the bottom, the surface is for the most part almost horizontal, so I can kind of dump it out. It's a little easy to keep track of it. It doesn't try to run away too quickly. So this one's a little trickier. I'm going to try and keep it on the cloth and not on the floor. and I don't want it all over me either. That's another thing too. Wear clothes that you don't care about ruining. I don't care about this jacket or the pants I'm wearing, but again, try to keep the epoxy on the cloth, not on anything else, and we'll see how this goes. I'm going to try and get in as close as I can. I'm going to run this right along the top here. And my cup is actually touching the cloth. And there it goes. I'll just try to keep up with it. And just like when I was doing the bottom, I'm not putting a lot of pressure. I'm trying to, because you have to have enough epoxy there for it to wet in, so you're not trying to scrape it too much. I just went all the way to the bottom there just to catch those runs before they got a chance to go off the edge. And I got some kind of paper on the floor. It came as like a shipping packing for something that I ordered. But I saved some of that stuff along with some of the boxes. Sometimes I cut those up to put on the floor. I think I'll stretch this down here. I'm not sure on the sides here how much how far 24 ounces will go. Got a few drips on the floor, but it's going to happen no matter what you try. But you got to get it onto the down right at the edge. And this cloth, it's probably an inch or two long. So in a few minutes, you'll start to see where the side of the boat ends. You'll see it starting to come through, like right here. And hopefully maybe the cloth will catch some of those extra drips. I just got epoxy all over the back side of this. It's a little bit slippery. I'll just wipe a little bit off so I can hold this thing. It's kind of getting slick. Just dump a little up on the top here. Get a piece of a trash bag up on the top so I don't get all the epoxy drips all over the place. And I'll move that along with me as I'm working down the side. I do have my respirator up there. This stuff, after a while, it does get kind of a little bit stinky when you're mixing it up in big batches. And many years ago, I don't know, maybe back in 2007, I was building a boat and I wasn't wearing the mask doing this, and I noticed I started getting a sore throat. Go to the doctor, everything looks fine. The only thing I could chalk it up to is I was probably developing a sensitivity maybe to the epoxy, because the sore throat went on for weeks. And nothing I was trying was getting rid of it. It wasn't super bad, it was just, you know, enough to be annoying. And nothing was fixing it. Back then, I remember I went away for a weekend with my wife, and it was winter time, and I remember I was drinking quite a few beers, and the next thing I know is by the end of the weekend, sore throat went away. So I'm not saying you know, if you get a sore throat to drink beers, but I don't drink anymore at all. But I just remember that seems like it did the trick for me to stop the sore throat. But I actually, I think it was definitely from the epoxy, maybe a little sensitivity to it. So it is a good idea, even though it doesn't smell. It's nothing like, I don't know if you've ever worked with polyester resin, which I have. That stuff is terrible. Very smelly, very dangerous. Or any of these chemicals, you should probably wear your respirator. But for now, just so you can hear me, I'm not going to wear it. It's ready to go, because I won't film the entire side here. I'll just show you maybe 2 batches worth of doing the epoxy, just to so you can see how I do it. But you can see it's starting to wet out now on the overlap here on the chine. It's going to need a little more. Obviously, you can, I don't know, hopefully the camera will pick up. You can see like the spots that are a little bit transparent. I'm going to pull the tape off in a few minutes. I just want to get some of this on here so it kind of makes it stick. That might be easier if I just use the brush now and just start dabbing it in, but I'll give it a few minutes to let that soak in as much as it's going to, and if it's still transparent, I'll dab it in there with the brush. I'm starting to apply a little bit of pressure along here, because you can see it's wetting out. You can hear the little crackly sounds. That's the air coming out of the cloth and the bubbles, and all I do is I'll just push the resin down. I'm going to need a little bit on the corner here. You hear that crackling sound? That's all the air coming out. I'm just using my thumb here, putting pressure on this and trying to keep it even, and it's on a really low angle here, the spreader. So it's pushing the cloth down as well as getting some of the excess resin out. I'm going to need more epoxy down below here. So you can see I'm starting to get quite a few drips on the floor. Sometimes you can just dump it on the spreader too a little bit, and start at the bottom here and work your way up. I don't like really pulling the cloth in this direction. I'd rather follow the weave, I guess. I don't know what I'm trying to, I don't know what the proper word would be, like the axis maybe of the cloth going front to back, because the threads that hold all the fibers together are going that way. It just kind of distorts it too much if you try to pull it in that up and down direction. I'll do it a little bit if I have to, but I won't do it a lot, because I don't want to stretch the cloth in some weird direction. That's kind of hard to get it back in alignment. just using the spreader, trying to find the edge of the hull. And the sides, they may need a little trimming down once I get this flipped over. If you're watching the previous videos, you would have heard me saying that I added 4 inches to the height of the shear line on this, just to give me a little bit more freeboard. I like that feeling of a little more freeboard than a little less. I don't think any boat I've ever built, I've built it exactly to the designer's plans. I guess you can look at it. That's the beauty of building the boat yourself. You can maybe have a little bit of freedom as long as it's not affecting the design too much, and kind of do it the way you want, right? Okay. Yeah, it looks like it's soaking in. I'll dab it with a brush for some parts of it. And I'll have to use the brush on the back corner here to get some of that on. And you can see right along the edge there, there's a little bit of you can see the white of the fiberglass showing. Probably take this tape off now. And I'd prefer to pull it on the side that I'm trying to lift it up from. Because if I pull it that way, it might start to pull at the fibers a little bit, which is not that big of a deal, but I just try to keep everything as neat as I can, and even this way it pulls at them a little bit. You can see one little fiber right here, it just grabbed like a piece of thread. Yeah, not bad. I'll just find something to stick it on because my fingers are a little sticky, so. Okay, I'll just wet out those spots where the tape was. Give those a few minutes to soak up the resin. And I'll go back with my spreader and pull out any excess. See right along the bottom here, you can see a lot of transparency. So just take the brush, a little bit on the tips, and just use the tips and kind of jab it into it. And force that resin through the cloth. just like I said in the last episode when I was fiberglassing the board, I try not to use the brush pulling the cloth. Like what you can see right now, I'm doing a little bit to get it around the corner. But I find if I do that too much, that it starts pulling on the fibers and I get little, almost, I guess I'll call it like a little fur ball type effect, you know? If anyone owns a cat, you find the little fur balls. It's kind of like that, I guess. You'll see like just a little buildup of fibers, and you can leave them there and it'll sand out when you go to sand the cloth down. But still, it just, the brush I think tends to pull at the fibers differently than that spreader. Just kind of smoothly runs across the cloth, different than the brush does. But you need the brush to do what I'm doing now, dabbing at it to get it to sit down on these corners. I put a little, this overlaps a little bit here, and I'm just dabbing the ends here to get them to sit down and corner there. See right there, I just pulled a little thread out, but just dab it down, and you know, when it sets up, just sand it if it's high. Wipe off the brush, and we'll start cleaning up the sides here. And this time I'm going to pull it back this way and go around the corner. I'm not as steep of an angle, because now I'm just trying to get the excess off since it's all wet out. I'm able to pull the excess around the corner. And onto the tab that I have going around onto the transom. Around the corner, and kind of flatten out the squeegee as you go around that corner, and push it right into the cloth in the back here. And I think it looks like I'm going to have enough to do this. This is it's wetting out actually very good, and the epoxy is doing exactly what I want it to do. And that one little drip that I got right there, no big deal. I just wiped it up with the spreader. Okay, come down, right along here, around the corner, flatten it out on that corner to push it in on the corner, and then right along the back. This I'm going to go till I add it, so you hear those the air coming out. There we go. You're just trying to push that cloth down onto the hull. You don't want your cloth floating, you want it stuck to the hull, and you don't want excess resin sitting on top of the cloth. You're not trying to fill the cloth right now, you're just trying to apply it. And like the bottom, it's still rough, but it's going to be very easy to, it's going to take very little fairing to get that to come out smooth if you do it that way. If you leave puddles there, then you're going to be sanding it down and trying to fair it. And that little spot of little thread just popped up on it. It's probably from pulling maybe a little too hard on it. Okay, I'll take this one, back on a nice fit on it, drag it around the corner. Let's see if we can hear it. Yeah, a little bit. I don't know if you can hear it on the crackling, getting the air out of the back side here. trim a little piece of tape there that I have, the initial piece that I put on to hold the cloth in place is in the way. It's actually going under the strip, but I got these little razor wheels that I use all the time that work great for going along stuff like this. You just run it down and I'll pick it right off. And any of these products that I'm using too, all the supplies, if you go in my video description, everything that I use, other than these gloves right now, there's a list of them available there, and if you click on the link, it'll bring it up for you. And I get a little commission on it. It's not much. I just started doing that. I have yet to see any commission. I don't know if anyone's even been on there. And to be honest with you, I'm not even sure how it all works. I'm not that great with computers, so sometimes I can't tell if I'm doing the right thing or not. And the same goes for the videos too. Sometimes I'm trying to edit this stuff and downloading the video and I'm kind of, where did it go? You know, and then the next thing I find it on the computer I'm using somewhere. But I can build a boat. That's the important part. And you know, I'm learning the computer stuff and the video and editing and trying to keep it entertaining for you. But I think I want my videos to be probably no more than like 30 minutes long, but I don't want to shorten them up and not show you something that I think is important to the process that I'm doing. But there's no need of me to show you fiberglassing the whole entire side of the boat. I can show it to you when I'm done. I'll just show you a portion of how I do it. And I'm almost done here, other than the very bottom here. There's a lot of excess resin. Now the way that this is wrapping around these corners, it's the right way to do it. It really ties the boat in as like one piece, because these sides come up and they're glued into the side of the transom. And what this is just really tying this all together, wrapping it around. And when I put the section on the transom here, the transom is going to come up and overlap 4 inches to here. And they'll end up being, actually, with all the overlap, there'll be 4 layers of this biaxial on here. And especially on the transom, you have the torque of the engine and all that stuff back there. You know, maybe a little thread there. Maybe 4 is a little in excess, but I guess I'm kind of a belts and suspenders kind of guy. But you don't want to overdo it either here, because it does add weight to the boat. And you know, weight costs fuel, and you want the boat sitting the way the designer has it too in the water. You don't want it going down too low, or you know, sitting I don't know, the water line properly. All right, I'm happy with the way that's coming out. I'm just kind of going very lightly, just to think of it kind of like when you paint a wall and you use the roller and you can see little marks from the edge of the roller and you go over it with the roller. I'm doing the same thing right now. I just want to finish the top here because I added some resin. I'm going to push it up that way, right onto the hull. Scrape any excess off. Yeah, you hear that air coming out? Little thread here I'm trying to get. It wants to pull the whole thing, so I'll leave it and I'll sand it. Just get my little overlap mark right there. There we go. Nice. I don't know if you can hear the noise. That's the texture of the cloth. That's what you want to hear. If you didn't hear that, you probably got a little too much epoxy on there. And like I said, all you're trying to do is get the cloth wet out fully and onto the boat. You're not looking to fill the weave of it right now. You go back after it's set up and do that, after some sanding, and there'll be some fairing on this. But if you look, actually you can't see it, I can barely see it looking. It comes down so I can see the black Sharpie from the last little bit of it right here. Okay, I feathered that in. The bottom layer, if you weren't watching the last episode, I did the bottom. It came over and I overlapped the side by 3 inches. That overlap ends right there, and I sanded it and feathered it into the hull. This layer of the cloth coming up and over that, it's going to take, when you do it that way, it's going to take very little fairing. I'll need to fair that a little, but it's not going to take much, because this layer of cloth coming up, it kind of creates that taper into it, and that's why I do the bottom first. I do the bottom first coming over, and then the side coming up, because this comes to an end right here, and that's it. The second coat I put on is going to do the same thing. That'll take a little more fairing right there because it's leaving a ridge. This one, because we're coming up and over the first overlap, the end of the overlap, it's kind of fairing it in there, just using the epoxy. There's a little epoxy in here. I don't think I'll bother using it because it's you can see it's white. It's from scraping it off. It's full of air, and I'm just afraid that it might be getting towards that point where it might start setting up in a minute. But I will use just a little bit of it to dab on a few spots back here, just to make sure that this is where it overlaps. I'll be able to sand this down. I'll leave it standing a little bit proud. And so it turns out I did okay with 24 ounces. It did about what I got at the top there, so lengthwise anyways, it's still gonna get me the same coverage as with the bottom when I did that. So I finished the fiberglassing, and I did the transom also. So there's 7.5 hours into it today. For the side, the opposite side, and then on the stern of the boat. And it came out really well. I'm going to end up having to sand these edges, like this edge right here. This is where the cloth ends, where it came up and over. I'll end up having to sand that. It's a little rough, but I'll feather it in. I'll add just a tiny bit of fairing compound. I don't like to put a lot on because it's not a structural like the epoxy. So I'll only use just a tiny bit. Right here where this overlaps, right now it just needs a pretty good sanding, but in the end I'll put a little fairing compound on it. And it came out pretty well. This is the transom back here. Maybe you can see better from the side. I'm trying to get you. You can just barely catch right here. That's the first layer that overlapped the side coming into here. Then the layer on the transom comes around the side and ends right here. And I'll have to sand like that edge down, feather it in to get ready for the second coat of biax. Second coat of biax on the sides, probably a little overkill, but I have it, so I'm going to do it. It'll add a little bit of weight, a little cost. I think it might add maybe the two sides. It'll add maybe an extra 30 pounds on there, but it's going to be a pretty strong boat. And you can see right up here, this comes up onto the transom. That's where the seam ends. You got to be careful of these too. Be very careful with rubbing your hand on those before you sand it, because sometimes you get some little sharp points that stick up there like needles. This is up towards the bow now. I'll need to sand that down. Or getting towards the bow. It's still the bottom of the boat. Here's the bow. This is going to take a little bit of sanding here. But you can see on the side where the one on the bow came and wrapped around here. It ended right in here. You can see where I put a teeny bit of fairing compound in. This came over from the side to the front. It overlaps. So there's all these corners have 2 layers on it. It's going to end up with 4 layers on all these corners. So this is going to be one really strong boat. It'll be able to take a pretty good beating. And so I'm just going to get on to sanding. I'll give you one more look at it. I'll sand these edges. I'll put a little tiny bit of fairing compound on where the last layer I did, where the end of that ends. And I'll give you a little peek at it when I'm done with it. So after about 2 hours worth of sanding, I put a little fairing compound on. And it might look like a lot of fairing compound. You can see right along these seams right here. Most of that will be sanded off. That edge, I feather it down anyways. With the sander, I get a little bit of a ramp there, and then I'm putting just a little bit of fairing compound there that'll just help it with the next coat of glass. It's going to come down this way, up and over. The reason I didn't put any, you can see this right here, maybe where it sanded it a little tougher, or a little, it sanded it off more here. That's the overlap under this layer here where it ended. And if you go maybe on the side on an angle, you might be able to see, yeah, right in here. See how it's kind of, that's showing like a low spot, maybe sort of like a low spot where the sander just bridged from here down to here. And that's where after I do the next layer that's coming down from the center of the keel down over to here, once that's cured, I'm going to put a little bit of, I'll feather this edge along here, and then I'm going to put a little bit of fairing compound just like that, just to fill in where you can see that gap right there. Sand it down, and then the next layer of glass will come from the side up and over up to about here, just like I did the first round of the glass, what you're seeing here now. And that will significantly cut down on the amount of fairing, if I'm going to need any at all, but you're going to need a little bit. You're going to need some in places here and there. But once that second layer of fiberglass cures, I'll give it a quick sanding with the 40 grit again, just to knock down the high spots. And typically what I like to do is I'll just keep rolling in a couple coats of light coats of resin just to fill in the cloth. And then anything that needs fairing after that, which would most likely be minimal, I'll do then. So this will be the end of episode 9, and it might be a little while in between episodes because I'm going to get the second layer of the 12-ounce biax on the entire hull, and probably after that I'll take another video of it all, and or maybe after I get some of the stuff faired in a little bit more, I'll take a video and I'll update you with it. So like I always say, subscribe, pass the link on to people that might be interested, make comments, suggestions, and I'll see you probably in another week or two after the second coat of glass is done. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.